Welcome back to the Pig Trail. This man beside me needs no introduction. Phil Elson joining us. Happy to have you in studio, man.
Yeah, nice
Talk
to be.
one-on-one here.
It's been a while since I sat in this chair, Elson.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
Good to have you back. We're going to have some women's basketball and, of course, baseball, which I think there might not be anyone as excited for baseball season to start except for you and maybe Dave.
And maybe Bubba.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a general excitement about it overall, no matter what. But as the season approaches, it's like it compresses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It kind of it becomes a nervous, anxious energy.
Yeah. I was sitting in Dave's press conference last week, kind of just his introductory press conference, thinking to myself, I cannot wait for baseball to start. So we're going to get to that. But let's first talk about this women's team who, you know, they played LSU. They beat LSU here. They go on the road, put up a really tough fight against Tennessee. And then they lose to Texas A&M. But more importantly, they lost Michaela Daniels to an injury for that game. How big is Michaela Daniels out now factor into the rest of this dynamic?
I think it's pretty big, you know, depending on how long she's out. And maybe it's a good thing to have a week between games at this moment. You know, first of all, without Michaela against Tennessee, and then go to overtime, you know, and I just feel like this year, and you've seen it when Aaron Barnum got hurt, the same time Emory Ellis got hurt, and now with Michaela, this is a year where an injury or two can really affect you because you're still building that depth. And Michaela, she'd never missed a game in the 3 years. She's such an on-court leader and dependable in so many ways. And it's not to say that, you know, like Riley Langerman doesn't add a certain energy when she's out there. But I think that they might have not had their legs against Texas A&M. And the kind of speed that Arkansas usually wants to play, you got to have your legs. And I think that was sort of noticeable.
For us, there's still, what I see is still learning some roles. One, I think that Samara Spencer has been stellar in her freshman season, and obviously someone, when we talked about the incoming freshman, Jersey got a lot of attention. She's a girl from right here in Arkansas from Fort Smith. But Samara comes in and has really kind of stolen the show, I think, as the freshman who's really been helping this team. What do you see from her on the court? I
mean, a very determined energy. See a lot of the things that I remember feeling about Michaela Daniels. It's like, and she wasn't a freshman a month into the season.
Yeah.
But then Sam hit a little bit of a lull with her shot and I think with her offensive game, but it didn't seem to affect her effort or her energy or the way that she approached defense or even teamwork. And then the shots started to come back, and she can be a really dynamic player. Plus she plays, and this is what I really love about this team this year, and you see this from Sam, and you see this from Jersey too. They're playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they know that teams, Tennessee's tried to do it, Carolina's tried to do it, Tennessee tried to do it twice. You know, they'll play elbows up and try to intimidate Arkansas. And they never do. They never do. Now, they might have lost to Tennessee twice, but I think they gained a lot of respect in both those games.
What do you think about Sasha Goforth? You know, Mike always says she's still a freshman in our system, though she's got a year of collegiate basketball under her belt. But for me, I still feel like she's figuring out exactly what her role is.
I think she really adds a lot of defense around the perimeter, and what she can do is drive to the rim. And really try to get there in a way that you saw from Chelsea Dungy. And that's a lot of the rim scoring, I think, for Arkansas. So I think that's kind of her role. Might like to see her get to the foul line a little bit more, but she adds a ton of energy. Plus the length that she guards around the perimeter is kind of unique. She leads the team in block shots, and she can guard kind of anywhere around the floor. That's big for this team.
Look at now, you're 4-5 right now in the SEC. You got a handful of games left before the SEC tournament in Nashville at the beginning of March. Next up is Auburn, and then they have Missouri. But what does this team need to do to build some momentum heading into the postseason in the next couple of weeks?
I mean, right, what you have in front of you here are a couple of games to really start that momentum up before you end up with kind of a crazy stretch in that last week, which is going to be 4 games in 8 days, and then leading into the tournament. So, I mean, a chance to play Auburn at home, you know, even without Michaela, you know, home game, a team that has struggled, although, I mean, heck, Auburn did beat Tennessee, which is maybe the biggest upset in women's college basketball, certainly in the SEC this year it is. And then to go on the road, you know, that's a chance to kind of help cement things with your net ranking. And I'll tell you what, right now, their net has been in the mid to high 20s from the start of the net ranking. So they kind of already have a resume that's got them in a place where they look like they're a tournament team if things don't change from being around 500 in the SEC.
All right, the women again, they are up next against Auburn. Let's jump into baseball. Again, that season starting on the 18th down at Baum-Walker Stadium. They welcome in Illinois State. What are you looking forward to the most for opening day?
That's a loaded question, Alyssa. How much time do you want me to go about that?
You can have as much time as you want to. But I think maybe, you know, the biggest questions I think people have are what the lineup's going to look like, but the pitching rotation and what they're going to do with those things.
I think there's faith from all angles, fans, coaches, team, everybody, opponents, that this is going to be a team that scores runs consistently in a lot of different ways. They might be, and I'm guessing a little bit because there's, you know, we don't know what the lineup looks like. You know, there's guys that are transferring from other programs that haven't played in the SEC on a continuous basis, and this is just a tough lineup to crack. I think there's a lot of good ball players, not just this year, but in recent years, who just haven't had a chance to get a lot of at-bats here because these guys score runs and they bop it. So that just kind of feels like something that'll happen. So what are we looking for at first is what pitchers will throw strikes? What pitchers will take the stuff that they have? Because I think they all have great stuff. You don't come to Arkansas and not have great stuff and pitchability, and have shown at the high school level that you can command some of these pitches. But guys that can control the strike zone a little bit early. You know, there are a lot of, every single role for this team pitching-wise is up for grabs. Every single one of them. So that first weekend, it's not like you're going to grab a hold of it, but you'll build a little momentum towards cementing those roles as you approach the SEC schedule.
There was such a high last year with Kevin Kopps and what he did. And is it hard to go from witnessing what we did last year to a brand new season and be able to separate the two and not continue to compare whatever Arkansas does this year to what Kevin Kopps was able to do last year?
Well, I mean, that happens year by year on a team-by-team basis. That's natural because the last season was right there in front of us. You remember everything about it, and you still have plenty of holdovers from the season before. The difference is we're comparing this inexplicable season that Kevin had, and you can't do that. Nobody's ever going to have a season like that before in college baseball history. That was a unique season for what Kevin did, to have that much impact on that many games. As a pitcher, you usually don't have that much impact on the number of wins that Kevin had. That's why he was the Golden Spikes Award winner, aside from the ridiculous ERA and strikeout to walk ratio and the story that went with it. What everybody needs to just try to do is not say, who's this year's Kevin Kopps? Because there isn't going to be one.
Right.
There isn't going to be one. Every season has its own personality. Every team has its own strengths and weaknesses year by year. And that's what we're going to find out. That's what I mean by all these roles are just up for grabs right now. Friday starter, Saturday starter, Sunday starter, Tuesday, Wednesday, stopper out of the bullpen, closer out of the bullpen, left-handed setup guy, this kind of, everything's up for grabs. That's kind of exciting. And it's a little nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yeah, and it's a special season. 100 years of Arkansas baseball, 20 years for the skipper. 20 years Dave Van Horn has been here leading this program. And how about Dave giving his number to Jalen?
I
know. How about that?
I know. That's humility.
Yeah.
That's humility. Usually a guy's supposed to, like, if you're going to get someone's number, you pay for it. Yeah. I don't think Jalen's giving Dave any money for that number. So if that's what it takes to get a guy like Jalen Battles to stay instead of go to the draft, which he would have been drafted. Yeah. Then that says a lot. I think Jalen's going to have a really big year.
I think
Just one thing I noticed when I watched the scrimmage, like half a scrimmage before traveling with the women's team, was just his size. He got bigger. He's got a butt. I think he's going to hit for some pop. Yeah. And if you want to, like, all right, so one thing that I really love about this team right now, I'm not going to do the comparison, but what I loved about last year's team was up the middle, catcher, shortstop, second base, center field. That's a good core to have for a baseball team. The infield for this team this year, Caden Wallace at third base, Jalen Battles at short, Robert Moore at second base, and Peyton Stovall at first, even though he was learning a new position. From everything you know about a kid that is that good
you just got to put
shortstop,
him out there.
He's going to be okay at first base. There are some subtleties to learn. That is going to be a lockdown infield. aside from the fact that they all can hit. It might be the best infield in college baseball. So that's the backbone of this team right now.
It'll be fun to watch. I'm excited about it. Of course, Illinois State starting things off on the 18th. Phil, always great to have you in here. And I'm sure you guys catch Phil on the radio to halftime, 11-1.
That's right.
Every day,
of course
11
you
to 1.
In the middle of the half of your day.
There you go.
Yep.
All right, Phil, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate it, Alyssa. We'll do it again.
We're going to have more Pig Trail after the break.